Hi, I'm Justin Moorman.
And I'm Katie Thornton, and this is the Re-Education of Schools podcast,
where we have open, honest conversations about how to better understand social emotional learning, trauma-informed care, the whys behind student behavior, and how to help kids navigate it all as they go through school and life. All right, welcome back to our next episode, Building Community. Before we get started, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, we would so appreciate you giving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. It helps other people find this content and helps keep the conversation going. Did that sound pre-recorded?
Yeah, it wasn't. Honestly, sounded super professional. I was kind of impressed that you.
Well, I read it that time because I felt like I lost myself the last time we recorded. So I feel like stick to the script, Justin. Just stick to the script. So building community, we wanted to have an episode talking a little bit about how we potentially do this, not just in the school as a whole, but within teams as well. I think that's one of the things that I've had the opportunity, I guess, is what you would call it, or the necessity of doing
it. The blessing to do, yes.
Over the years, I've never been just by myself in a room. Just the nature of the jobs I've had, I've always worked with a team, which isn't necessarily always what most teachers are not in that scenario. I mean, you would kind of have a team. Yeah. But I'm like...
the one thing they don't tell you about when you become an intervention specialist, you're also like a manager of like lots of people, right? And I think that's something I always coach through early intervention specialists with through. It's a little tricky sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So building culture can make or break schools in general, certainly trauma-informed schools.
Yep.
So if we know this, how do we build this? So we're going to talk about some intentional things. We'll kind of go back and forth. We'll each take some stuff. Yeah. You assigned them, so you should know it, which topics we're going to talk about.
Okay, they're the best. Well, I think we always talk like philosophically about culture and climate, blah, blah, blah. And I think people really just want the nitty gritty of like actionable action things that we've like done in the school so they can walk away and come away with an idea to go implement. Now this is going to be all actionable today. So less philosophy, more action. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the environment.
Like you're telling me like I don't have anything prepared. Like I'm going to be surprised.
Can you talk? Okay, Justin and I haven't talked to each other like in 3 weeks, which is a very long time for us because we've been on vacation. So here we are. This is happening.
Lots of talking. All right.
Live time. Here we go.
Environment.
So I think one of the biggest things that contributes to a school that's underutilized is the environment in which you work in, like the physical environment. If you work in a rundown place and with furniture with holes in it and walls look like a prison yard and whatever, it doesn't make you feel good to come to work every day, and it doesn't make kids feel good to be there, and you really don't feel valued in that space. So I try to really design spaces that that feel more like a home. Comforting like a home. I try to utilize color schemes that look that way. We have a lot of plants in our school. This all goes back to my Reggio roots. When we're looking at designing, we're looking at photos of families and adding things into our environment that establish space for collaboration. So I'm going to run through some of the things that we've done. Our SEL team just pulled off like these 5 incredible belief statements about kids, our philosophical beliefs. Those are going to be posted in our lobby space. We host a lot of families in and out for various reasons for our district at our school. And the lobby space should feel like you have a warm, inviting, comfortable space to sit and wait if you need to. So that we have furniture out there that allows that somebody to come and say, I don't mind sitting and being here for a while. There's not like a school chair sitting out like, good luck, find your space. It also has, right there in the lobby, we are putting up these belief statements. So if anybody that came and sat down, they would understand what our school is about when they first came in. So that was super designed by intention. The staff lounge, this is such a silly twist that we've done, but like we had 4 round tables that could sit like 4 people at them at a time. We got rid of those and I call them the Last Supper tables, but we have 2 very long tables that can sit a lot of people. Now that was a game changer for our staff. You could walk in there and it wasn't like, oh, there's nowhere to sit, or the 3 people I wanted to sit with, there's no seats left, so I'm just going to go eat in my room. If you want people in there, I mean, there's some scheduling things you need to work into there, but just having the long tables that allow conversation to flow, that was designed intentionally to have people eat in the lounge and be able to have that non-contingent time together.
More welcoming. Less intimidating to walk into small tables way easier to walk in and you're like, well, there's only 2 tables I can sit at. So of course I sat at a table where you're already at.
Yeah.
You know, because there's only 2.
Yeah. And there's little things like I have a coffee bar in there. We have the PTO bring in snacks, and we try to have like beverage and food drives from our families, which do a great job. We have pictures of our own families in there. I try to provide like paper plates and utensils. And so there's just not a barrier not to be in there. And it's a pretty buzzing place when it's like lunchtime. We just finished a teacher workroom, huge shift. Have you even seen it yet?
I went in there the other day.
Okay, good. Okay. So we went from maybe where
I feel like it's important to tell people that we're recording this in the summer. And like, I just haven't not been in the teacher workroom. Then it's like October or whenever this is coming out, September.
So we redesigned our teacher workroom, and it went from maybe a center of where like maybe our building aides were like able to work with their desk in the middle. We changed the environmental space where now there's 4 huge butcher block kitchen islands kind of put together with some stools so teachers can sit and actually get materials out and sort and organize and have a space where, and I had 2 teachers that came up to me yesterday and said, we just went down there and organized a bunch of our math stuff and we're able to get organized and sit down because we had the space to do it. It was so great.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff breeds like community and collaboration. I mean, these are all things that feed into that culture and climate. Having a common supply room where you can go get what you need and you don't feel like you have to hoard materials or supplies, and keeping that pretty well stocked. If we know student-centered learning is really important and we want kids to engage in project-based or inquiry-based learning, then we need to provide like a maker space to house and utilize that for our things. Those contribute to the culture and climate and what we're expecting out of our school. Same thing with nature. If we know that regulation and being outside improves test scores, then we need to create a space where teachers can get kids outside to investigate, to improve our test scores. And so you have to create those environments intentionally to allow collaboration, to give people the resources and the tools so that they can actually execute some of these things that you're talking about. So environment plays a huge part into how your school operates and runs on top of scheduling.
Yeah, and I think being open about why the environment is the way it is helpful too. I was thinking about tests because, again, one of our last memories from last year is going through all of testing. Beautiful times. But how many of our teachers, almost all, I think, before testing would start in the morning, would take students outside because they know now, right? Like, information's been passed on. Hey, studies show being outside is going to help improve test scores, not only over the long term, but even like on the day. Like, if you can be outside and be in nature some before. And so then they started doing it. If they don't know, why would they do it, right?
And they've got the space to do it.
Yeah. So I think that's really good.
All right.
Intentional training. Do this one.
Yeah, I told Justin to talk about intentional sneaky training because I feel like this is
sneaky training.
This is culture and climate thing. So do you want to share what that is a little bit?
I do. It's very official sounding, sneaky training, and doesn't sound devious at all.
Yeah.
But I think if you're building a community or a team and you want people to be on the same page, training is such a big part of it. However, if you constantly are asking people to sit down and be involved in an official kind of formal training, that wears thin pretty quick. You can only do that so many times. We're in meetings already way too much. I mean, the right amount. But we're already in meetings all the time in schools. And so asking for more like official, formal kind of training times or meetings is a lot. I think those things are important, but you don't necessarily always have the opportunity. So one of the things that I really intentionally do is try to have that intentional kind of informal, or I call it like sneaky. It doesn't seem like you're training somebody, but you are training. And it's really just about always being ready to connect the dots for people, to me, or to recognize what people have done well and point it out, and then connecting that to the concepts that are known to work. So like an example of this as like because I feel like it's kind of hard to explain maybe, but when we years ago, a different place than I'm at now, but when we first added in it was a separate facility. We had a lot of students who had a really hard time regulating. And at the time, historically where we were using a timeout room a lot. The kids would like get really dysregulated. We would end up going down to a timeout room, whatever. We started learning a lot more about the brain and things like that. And so one of the things that we had implemented was adding a sensory room to our building. But but we had a lot of people who'd worked in this profession for a really long time and at this place for a really long time. And it seemed like what we were offering as a place for kids to like go get off the hook for what they were doing without like having accountability is what like, and not in a mean way, but like that's just kind of what people's perception was. Like, oh, like they're throwing stuff into my room, and so I'm supposed to take them down and let them sit in a room and listen to music in a vibrating chair, or in a beanbag. That's kind of ridiculous. And I also worked at a building. It was the same building with a lot of males, right? So they had a certain perception, a little bit more like tough love. I say that not like even in like a you get it, tough love, like it was intense. Like they really were more like, holding strong boundaries, things like that. A lot of people were doing really good things. But it was in the position I was in at the time, I wasn't in a classroom, and I was kind of more overseeing a lot of behavioral stuff in general. And I only knew so much, but I knew that the research was showing that the sensory stuff would be a big deal. And I had learned experientially that it could really change some things for kids. And so what I started doing is what I would call this kind of like sneaky, like informal training. Instead of like going and having like a whole session with everybody and being like, now listen, this is what this does. This is all the science behind it, whatever. As we were like potentially transporting students down to a timeout room, this room happened to be closer. I remember specifically this one guy, I won't use his name in a million years. He's retired. He's not listening to this podcast anyway. Maybe he is. I don't know who listens to this podcast. And so we're transporting the student down to the timeout room. And I said, hey, instead of going all the way down there, why don't we just go in here so we don't have to go so far? And we went in, and I said, I said, hey, listen, this is what this room is to the kid. I said, why don't you just lay on this beanbag for a while? Like, just lay there. Like, you don't have to do anything. We're not going to bother you. And he did, luckily, didn't just like try to fight me or something, but which was an option. That was a possibility. And he went and sat down and ended up kind of calming down. And I remember looking at the guy who was the aide in the room, and I said, that's pretty crazy. Like, it seems like he's calming down. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and we don't have to like write, we don't have to log this as him being secluded or whatever, because he's down here. We've told him like, you let us know when you're ready to leave. You welcome to leave. He was down there for probably 10 minutes, and he's like, can I go back to class? Like very calmly, whatever. Went back down. Kid was fine for a while. I would check back in at the end of the day. I said, hey, how did you do the rest of the day? He goes, he did pretty well. He goes, actually, later in the day, he started to get amped up again, and I was getting ready to call, I was like, let's just walk down there. He walked down holding his hand, and we went back to the sensory room again. And I said, what's crazy is the OT who had explained all this stuff to me, this is what she said about what this does to their brains when we bring them in and let them do this thing. And I explained like, this is what she was telling me about how this works and why it all works. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I didn't know that. She explained it to me. I thought it's worth a try. You know what you should do tomorrow is instead of waiting until he's like so amped up, what if like the first two things that you see him do two things, and you're like, this, it's coming, you know this kid well. Yeah. You just go ahead and ask him if he wants to come down. You don't even have to like walk him down, and let's see what he does. That's what I mean by like, you start connecting the dots, right? There's like an outcome you want. There's something that you want to have happen. If you walk through it with people and kind of slowly train, and then this guy knew like, hey, this is why this is working. I didn't have to sit down and formally train the guy. It was all like kind of conversations. And I had to do that with several people about the exact same room in different ways. And, but what you find is then now he's on board, and he buys in, and not only just on board, but he understands why it's maybe working. He doesn't have to understand all of it in like some in-depth way, but he kind of got it. And now there's one more person on our team that gets what we're doing here. What we ended up seeing, which isn't a surprise, but like as the sensory room usage, because we tracked all of this, of course, I had spreadsheets, as you can imagine. And as sensory room usage increased, timeout room and our incident reports decreased significantly. And then we were able to, in formal times of staff meetings and stuff, I was able to present that kind of data and be like, hey guys, you're doing an amazing job. Look at this. This is what we didn't know if this would happen or not. Like we didn't know, whatever, but like you guys are doing it, you're getting it, you're doing such a great job. And then every time I would see somebody doing that and talk about like, oh man, I noticed that you took them there. That was a smart idea. It was really smart that you did that. I don't know that I even would have thought to take them there in that moment. It's like things that encourage and build like unity and build us toward a common goal. It doesn't always have to be official. It has to be intentional. You can't just hope. You can't just build the room and hope that people are going to go there, or whatever the thing is, right? You can't build the idea of whatever you want the room or the building to be like and hope that it happens. You have to be intentional about it, and you have to look for those opportunities. So I think this also comes down to like seeing the potential in people. Because it's so freaking easy and seemingly kind of popular to find the weaknesses in others and ourselves and kind of dwell on those. It would have been easy for me to be like, this guy's kind of a gruffer character. He's been around forever. He doesn't want some younger guy telling him what to do and telling him to go use this place. And he's just going to go do his own thing. And that's just who he is. And, you know, when he retires someday and the new person comes in, that's when I'll train that person, because like, he's not going to change. Like, I could have taken that approach. And I didn't. I decided not to. I decided to like see what we could do. And so I think if you can kind of train yourself to see the strengths of others and highlight those and connect them to the practices and concepts that you're hoping to build, what you're going to end up finding is that people start seeing the value in making those same connections themselves. So that's kind of like a crash course in what I end up calling like sneaky training. It's like I see somebody doing something well, or I encourage them to do something that is like the thing that we're hoping to do. And then I point out how well it went in a real way. If it didn't go well, don't like point out that it went well. Like, don't be fake about it, but like point out how well it went, or point out like what they're doing well and how that connects. It's simple things. I remember you always talking about a teacher that you noticed like had been being trained, and then like a student was having a hard time, actually a student, maybe even in my unit, I believe. And then you were like, oh, do you need anything? They're like, no, we got it, as they sat and regulated with a student in a hallway. And then to be able to go back and say, that was really great how you did that. You took all the stuff that you've learned and then you did it. And you know what that was doing for that student? That was not only helping them regulate in that moment, but then it also built like this, added some relational currency to what you're doing. And it also did that, you know, like you make those connections for people on the back end of the small things that they're doing well, to encourage them to continue, but to also connect those dots. Like, oh yeah, not only did I do this and it worked well, but me doing that was doing this in the brain. And that's something that we've trained on before. You know, it's those kind of things, but you have to be ready and thinking about that stuff a lot. It can be exhausting, but I think it's part of it.
Yeah, I just don't underestimate the unintentional time, or the intentional time you have to spend between training or alongside. Yeah. That's the culture and climate. If you really want the shift, you got to be doing the work on a day-to-day basis and leading it in your building. That's why it's dangerous to have the one-off PD, because you can't follow through on it. So and
there's a place for those. We say that all the time. There's a place for the one-time PD sessions, because that's how people get so much information at once. But I think it is the constant. It's that like informal kind of sneaky training that you constantly are connecting dots for people and encouraging people in ways. That's what solidifies it, and that's what makes it stick.
Yeah, that's a culture and climate shift.
All right. What about distributed leadership?
All right, doing. Hold on, I'm all over the place. Here I am. Okay. Distributed leadership. So I was going to say, running a school with the demands that present itself can't be on one person. Then it becomes less systematic, and it's like one person's idea, right? So I really, for culture and climate, if you can have a person to plan and organize things, but the collective leading the initiatives for buy-in and the vision really needs to come through somebody else's expertise and passion. And you can support those things as a building leader, but you don't have to run and be in charge of every single committee. And I'm super lucky. I've got the most talented people, and I feel like that's the reason why a lot of the initiatives we've been able to take off, like the nature or the STEM or the brain research piece, I have high-level experts of people who are willing to lead and have the passion. I try to help with like setting agendas and setting the meetings and organizing, but the actual leadership piece doesn't necessarily have to fall on me. You have to have that or really well-ran MTSS systems with like data and analysis. I mean, the quality and the leadership, that if you can find those people and tap into them, I think people want to be at work when they feel like their voice is valued, that they have some capacity and autonomy to lead and put some of their ideas in motion of things that they care about. Really shifts the culture and climate. And I think it's really important. And I've seen sometimes other building leaders kind of be overwhelmed or shrink the idea of the capacity of the building because they're not willing to give up the distributed leadership model.
So in your experience, do you feel like you have asked people to take on the leadership roles, or do you feel like you have had people volunteer for those, or like how organically does that happen? Like what do you look for when you're finding those people, and who to pass off some of the leadership
Well,
to?
I think it goes back to relationships, understanding where people's passions, and they're like, you know what would be really great if our school had this, or I would really love to do that. And I'm like, you know what, that is a really good idea. Let's do it. Okay, are you willing to walk and do this with me? I will support you and we'll get this initiative done. So some of it's having those conversations, understanding where people's capacity is and what their high level of interest are, and setting up and organizing the team. So a lot of it, I've just been lucky. I've had people just walk alongside with me. They're all initiatives that I'm super passionate about too, but there's zero chance that I'd be able to pull this all off. I wouldn't. Yeah. It would not. We would not have the things going on in our building if we didn't have the people. And it's the people who help lead those things because they have the expert background, but it's also the people that join those teams and do a lot of the work, day-to-day work of the operations for it. I think it does help. Our OTES, we're in the state of Ohio, our OTES rubric calls for leadership. If you want to be an accomplished rated teacher, you are leading outside of your classroom. And so I kind of hold that as a high expectation for that. It's really the defining characteristic between if you want to be an accomplished teacher or not, like you have to have leadership. And if you don't, then it's really hard to hit that marking. And so I think that helps for some people that's important to them. But I think it's just tapping into hiring the right people who have initiatives and values that you want that have something to offer your team.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky to have pretty amazing people with different talents.
Yeah. I think you've done that well. I think you're right in that there's some amount of luck of having like a really solid staff. But I also think one of the things that you do is, like you said, people well enough to know what some of their passions are. And even if it's not something that somebody is saying, it's not like somebody is always coming to you and saying, you know what I want to do is I want to create a whole outdoor meadow space and let me do it. Like, that's not necessarily how it's happening all the time. Or I want to create a whole maker space and, I just need your okay. That's not necessarily how it's happening. You know people and know what their passions are and what their gifts are. And that comes from getting to know them some. It's not like you have to be everybody's best friend in an admin kind of role, but knowing that, and then as you talk about what their things are that they're passionate or that you're mutually passionate about, is then being able to say, wouldn't it be great if, and would you be willing to? And I think you offer that opportunity. And then if they don't want to, it's also not like you've made people do things that are.
Oh, no, you can't. Yeah.
And so I think that's just important. I think there's what we're going to find is there's so much intentionality. That's going to be like the common word, whether it's the environment, whether it's, kind of this informal, sneaky training, whether it's the distributed leadership, there's such an intentionality behind it.
Yeah. And I hope, I don't know, maybe you can just, but I hope people find that when we take on these initiatives, that they're not wasted time. Because, sometimes we're like, well, we built this thing, we did this thing, and then we did nothing with it.
Yeah, sure.
Or it now looks like crap because we never maintained it.
Yeah.
That it's a common thread that we continue to be talking and voicing about these things that we're super passionate about, and that we're bringing intentional time to make sure that these still remain at the forefront and the focus of what we're doing, so that team's time is always still well valued and balanced.
Yeah. And I think too, when we probably haven't hit this spot at in the years that you've been the administrator where we're at now. But at some point, there's going to come a time where some of the initiatives that we've had going and that were a big deal and that have been really successful so far, that probably they run their course, and that we have to probably always be aware of when those times come and when it's time to be done with certain things. And maybe that doesn't mean you're done with the outdoors completely or whatever, but it's stuff has to shift or stuff has to change how it looks maybe. And so I think that's probably a part of it as well. All right. Unconditional positive regard. Unconditional, in case you don't know, not like I didn't, but in case you don't know, unconditional positive regard is a concept in psychology, particularly in person-centered therapy, where an individual is accepted and valued without any conditions or judgment. It's the basic acceptance and support of a person, regardless of their behavior or what they say. This attitude fosters a safe and supportive environment for personal growth and self-acceptance. I just made all that up.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. No, so less officially, it's a really non-transactional approach to relationships. That's how I think how I would describe it. Instead of like my acceptance or care or love for you being dependent on what you do for me or who you've been, it just simply exists. Right? I basically accept and care and love you just because you are. And I think that is very counter to how we interact as humans in general, not just in any given culture either. I think just across the board, we are transactional people. Like people are just transactional. And so everything feels like it should be that way, or things make sense to us in that way. Where, well, if you're doing something, I'm getting something from you, that means I'm willing to give something to you. And that's not what this is saying. This is saying that whether I ever, no matter who you are, no matter what you are, no matter how you're acting, no matter what you're doing, I just accept you as you are. And I think that's incredibly powerful when you're building a team. I think that it's also pretty crucial overall when you're building a team. If you want a team that feels like they're a part and they belong. Someone I worked with before and am going to have, this is funny, I was looking back through some stuff and I'm going to have an opportunity to work with again. I guess by the time this comes out, I am working with again. Put experiencing this unconditional positive regard like this, it gave me the opportunity to truly be myself and to shine the light on all of my potential. So when all of a sudden you don't have to be a certain way to be accepted or loved, all of a sudden you have the opportunity to truly be yourself and to then shine a light on all of the potential that you have. And isn't that what we want out of everybody that we're working with, out of an environment, out of a team that we have? That's what we want. And so that's what you have to somehow find a way to foster. So I think what's tough about that is that we still work in like a place where there are expectations and like things that you have to accomplish and things like that. But I think as people, the more you can offer just that acceptance because they are, that's pretty important. Now, what this doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that somebody says. This doesn't mean that you have to just accept if somebody treats you poorly. You don't have to just accept that. And be like a doormat or things like that. Don't necessarily hear that because that's not it either. As you're working in a team and building a culture and like this, building this community, because a good, healthy, loving kind of community isn't going to have people that are being treated poorly and things like that either. But it does mean I don't need you to be somebody you're not for me to accept you. I just need you to be who you are. And in that, like, you're accepted. Like, you're part of it.
It's okay that you handle that behavior situation this way. It's different than I do.
Yeah.
It's okay that you're not really good at that because we have this other team member who is.
Yeah.
Those are some things.
And I think that when you do that, you start being able to find, I mean, it's almost like the distributive leadership in that way. I think what you start to find is you find where people's strengths really are, and then you can maximize those. And I think maximizing what people's strengths are, all of us are going to have to do stuff that's not our greatest strength. Like, it's just part of having a job. You're not going to be great at all of it. There's stuff that you're not going to do as well as somebody else. But when you have this unconditional positive regard, it gives people the opportunity to be themselves enough to where now all of a sudden you can start finding out what people's real strengths are. And then, by golly, utilize those to maximize those as the part of the team that they are. And I think in doing that, that's a pretty big game changer, right? I mean, we've looked at different team members I've had even just here where some people are less good when it's like getting really tough crisis-y situations. And so that's fine. Like, I don't ask that person to be in that situation then, right? I'm going to ask that person to do other stuff that I'm not as good at, or that maybe my other team member's not as good at. And then maybe some of my team members are less strong, like helping with like the academics, or maybe I don't do a great job with tracking things well, you know? And so I'm going to end up finding the people that are the best at what they're doing. And and utilizing that in a way that fits. And you can do that not only in small teams, but I think you can do that absolutely in a whole building. And that's really what you're talking about with the distributed leadership too, is then all of a sudden you have somebody that's really good with nature and has a lot of knowledge of that and has connections. They're the one taking the lead on all of that. You have somebody that's like their passion is like science and like this kind of free flowing, like how do you let kids like just create and utilize and be creative? Those are the people that are taking the lead on our makerspace, right? I'm not taking the lead on our makerspace. Like that's not the right person. I'm not the person to do that.
Can I say that we have an interior committee?
Which not on that as well.
We are redoing some of the environments inside the school, and Justin was teasing me pretty good about he was not asked to be on that team. If you've heard our podcast before, that's not a surprise. Yeah.
All right. So I think ultimately people are pretty remarkable. Like, I mean, all people are really, really remarkable. We just have to have a safe spot to showcase our potential and our extraordinariness.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
Yeah, and I would say if you're not familiar with the idea of unconditional positive regard, I would encourage you to look. There's some other good podcasts out on this topic. We had our staff listen to one called "Of the Pedagogy." She's got a good episode out about this topic, and we spent time in our PLC groups talking about it. So, anyways, next plug. I'm going to talk about collective care.
Yep.
And if you're wondering what collective care is, we host a monthly non-contingent time each month. I promote them out with flyers all over the school. There's no strings attached. There's no school talk. It is just a time for our people and our staff to get together, because when brains are wired together, they fire together, right? We know it is the mirror neuron effect. It's relationship building. It's those touch points in terms of making things work. And so this is like the part that I think we miss a ton. Every meeting we have, there's a contingency or like a thing we have to do. You need to be intentional about having non-contingent time with people. Yeah. That is just, and I don't mean like a happy hour somewhere at 4:00. That is not.
It's not bad.
That's great too. I've got my crew I love doing that with, right? That's all good.
Sure.
But I'm talking about as a working staff, not a friend group. A working staff, you need to have offer non-contingent time together. I do it during contractual time after school. We've got time, so that's a space I found. So right after dismissal, if you are interested, I don't make anybody make them come. Some events have 25 people come. I've had events where there's been 5, and that's okay. It depends on what the topic is. But I'm going to share some events we've done if you're interested in hosting it. So here we go. Here's a list. We've had a yoga instructor come in, a meditation coach, a health and wellness coach. We've had goat yoga in the front lawn. That is the best, most funniest thing we did. Cookie decorating contest. We've created food bags for our students that needed food over a long break. We had food donated, and then we were able to give them some additional food. So that was just a service project we did together. We painted self-portraits of each other, which was hysterical. We did a cleanup day around the school, picked up trash and those kind of things. We did a hike out at one of the parks. We've done camp games. We've had just thrown puzzles on the table in the lounge, which was actually a very good turnout. I was super surprised. That was the easy one. We've had just a canvas painting. We've had dogs come in, like bring your dog to work today for the ones that could handle it. Not everybody brought their dog.
Sure.
Nobody sent me emails. We've had my brother zoomed in and hosted trivia for us. That was super fun. We had a patch party. We had a walking tour. We visited a different business. Our downtown was getting renovated. We are close school to that. We walked and visited a different business each time. That was really great. So that's not the extensive list, but hopefully gives you some ideas of what you could do with your staff, and you could get it sponsored through your PTO or have parents donate materials. But that is the stuff that makes the time.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to cost money. It doesn't always have to be at you don't have to be at a school that has a lot of money or anything like that to do a lot of the things on those lists. So I think that's important too. There are things you can do. Don't feel like just because maybe you're in a district that's got a real tight budget, a school that's got a real tight budget, maybe you have less money going on. There's still things you can do. And I think that's an important thing to remember. All right. How can we avoid like the business getting in the way and this falling off of our plates?
This is going to be no surprise for people that listen. I'd be super intentional. I schedule absolutely. Ask me what I'm doing May 7th. I'll tell you what I'm doing May 7th right now, and this is before the school starts. Yeah. I absolutely schedule everything, because if you're trying to schedule stuff through the year, it's not going to happen. You're going to get busy. There's not going to be time. it's going to be pushed off. If you got it on the calendar, it's kind of hard to be like, well, this is not going to happen now. Not that I haven't canceled or moved things or whatever. That happens
rarely.
But it's on the schedule. So I'm going to be intentional looking ahead that this is coming up. And so I need to start planning or have something in motion.
It's also why I have over 100 emails right now that are unopened.
You're welcome. So that's what I put. Just, be and if you're looking at renovating some spaces, we talked about the environment. It's a great project to take on over the summer. Get a team together, get a plan, get some volunteers. Think about your stuff over the summer. That's a good time to renovate spaces. It's really difficult to do during the school year.
Yeah. I think that I ultimately just believe that you have to practice some of these things until they become more like a lifestyle. So the first time you're going to start renovating the area and kind of doing small updates, you don't have to do the whole school at once. You don't have to do every area at once. I don't know of many places that have the budget for that. But start doing small things that cost less money or that are a small project that can start even getting people's like wheels turning in their own heads to create more of an environment that's like this, or start with small, like, again, cheap, easy collective care events, things like that. I think, but once you start doing it and you do it consistently, you have to change it from like, this seems out of the ordinary to, oh yeah, this is just part of the lifestyle of being here.
Yeah.
It's part of like what it
Then
means.
It becomes the culture and climate, right?
Exactly.
But those things have to be intentional.
Exactly. I think also as far as just not letting things get too far off our plates, you got to be kind of aware of who you're around and be aware of what you watch and listen to, and be aware of how you want others to feel about themselves when they leave your presence. You have to practice that. And I think in doing so, if all you're ever doing is talking about work and doing stuff at work, and like it's all like work, and which is obviously it's going to be most of what we're talking about when you're at work. But just be aware of that. And then as far as like the positivity, we talked about the unconditional positive regard, but also just in general, what is your general feel? Like, think about those kind of things. Like, it's important to intentionally, on purpose, think about it. Like when you interact with this person and you ate lunch with them in the staff lounge and then you walked away, how are you feeling walking away? Are you feeling like, I really enjoyed that. That was really good. Or are you feeling like, oh man, like that makes me, this place, ugh. Like maybe like that should tell you something about maybe who you're around, or maybe you listen to certain like education podcasts. I've seen clips of them before. Hopefully we never come across this way, where it's like, this is what's terrible about education. Oh, can you believe it? Oh, and then this happened. And you're like, yeah, like if that's what I'm listening to all the time, then why would I be excited about so just be aware of like what kind of stuff you're taking in and what kind of stuff is being like broadcast out there.
Yeah.
To the whole building as the whole community.
There's a saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. So think about which tribe to feel like.
Yeah. So I think like things you can do, leave reminders on your desk. If you want to have a kind of team this year, and you want to be a team member this year that is looked at as being really encouraging, maybe you take on writing one positive note to just a random different staff member every week. Something that's pretty doable, right? Just a little note once a week, and leave yourself a note that reminds you to do that. Or maybe you want to be somebody that is seen as someone who's like really available to listen to people. Maybe that's what you want to do. And make it a point to go check in with different people, not about like something, like not about like, hey, what are you doing with this math thing? But instead, like walk in and just be like, hey, just wanted to see how you're going. Like, how are things going in general? Like, doing okay?
How's your dad doing?
Yeah. Real easy, small things without an agenda, just being that kind of person. The kind of person you decide to be on a team and in a community is going to, again, ultimately spread. And we can be a positive impact in that way, or we can be a person that's like kind of a energy suck in that way. And I don't think any of us want to be that kind of person. But you have to do it on purpose. You're not going to all of a sudden accidentally write a positive note to one person a week. That's not going to accidentally happen where you're like, you know what? All of a sudden I've been doing that for 8 weeks. It's not how it works. Like, you have to take time to be intentional. Leave yourself reminders. Decide who you're going to be in this team and try to be that kind of person. Like, I think that's an important thing. All right. I think that's enough. We're getting long anyway. What do you want people to walk away knowing?
That really, as much as I'm a big picture dreamer, vision kind of person. The details do matter. Like being intentional, getting things scheduled. It's the part I don't enjoy, like sitting out 100 calendar invites, but it's the part that is part of the system that has to happen for the work to happen.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have both, and then it really creates the school culture and climate and the vibe. You have to think, like, is this the vibe from the environment, from the people, and with the people that I want to be around? And you can kind of set the tone for that. So don't forget the details, the little things, all the things we talked about, they all play into the fact of a school culture and climate.
Yeah. I think for me, as I thought more about like the unconditional positive regard, that is just so important, not just for building a community, obviously, of the staff. I think it goes such a long way with the students as well. And it is really incredibly difficult. I mean, it's not how we're wired. Like you have to be so purposeful to do that. And then it takes time to learn how to do that and still have boundaries and expectations. Again, not just of students, but of the people that are on your team that you work with, the people that are under you, the people that are, it's a weird balancing act to have both and to do both. But I think it is, if there's something worth practicing and turning into a habit, it is that. Believing that people are good and worthy of being accepted simply because they exist, not only changes their lives, but it actually changes how you feel about your life too. And how you just move through your day. So when it comes to people wanting to be on your team or building a community around you, I think it's a pretty crucial step. And that's the step I think that makes people walk away being like, man, I want to be on a team with that person. I want that person to be on my team, is that kind of person. If there's something worth practicing and getting really good at and being really intentional about, I think it's that. And again, it's tricky. It's tricky when you start talking about loving expectations and being loving and having boundaries. Like it's a weird mix, but I think the more you delve into it, the more you practice it, the better at it you're going to get. And I'd really encourage people to do that. Well, as always, we really appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you found some really practical things. Hopefully you found some like mindset kind of things as well throughout this episode that you can try to implement and try to hopefully encourage how you build a team and a community around your school or around just yourself. And what kind of team member you want to be. If you found this helpful, I would say please share it with somebody and then have a conversation about it afterwards and talk about what steps you guys might take in your own building or in your own team to kind of build this solid community and team around yourselves. And as always, let's go out there and do the work.
Let's go do it.